She was 17 years old enough to dream, young enough to believe the world was mostly kind. Emily Vance was the kind of girl teachers remembered years later. Quiet, dependable, polite in a way that felt old-fashioned even then. She worked part-time at a grocery store in Elk Ridge, Kentucky, saving every paycheck in a shoebox under her bed. College brochures were pinned to her bedroom wall. Nursing, social work, maybe teaching. She hadn't decided yet, but she knew she wanted out of Elk Ridge someday. Not because she hated it, but because she wanted more. On the evening she vanished, Emily wasn't running away. She wasn't meeting anyone. She wasn't scared. She was just trying to get home. The walk from the grocery store to her house was less than half a mile, a straight stretch of road she'd walked hundreds of times before. Streetlights flickered on as dusk settled into the hills. The store manager waved goodbye. Emily adjusted the strap of her bag and stepped into the spring air. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. By morning, Elk Ridge would wake up to silence so heavy it would linger for nearly 30 years. And when the truth finally surfaced, it would come from a place no one thought to look: a dusty attic, a forgotten photograph, and a detective who refused to let a teenage girl become a footnote. Emily didn't make it home that night. At first, her parents weren't alarmed. Sometimes she stopped at a friend's house. Sometimes she lingered downtown. But when midnight came and went, the worry crept in. By dawn, it had turned into terror. Her father was the one who noticed her shoes still by the door, her jacket still on the chair, her bed untouched. Emily Vance had vanished without a trace. Police canvassed the area within hours. Neighbors were questioned. Friends were interviewed. The half-mile stretch between the grocery store and her home was walked again and again. There were no signs of a struggle. No blood. No torn clothing. No witnesses who had seen her enter a car or argue with anyone. It was as if she had stepped off the face of the earth. For Elk Ridge, a town where everyone knew everyone, that idea was unthinkable. Rumors spread quickly. Some said she ran away. Others whispered about secret boyfriends, hidden pregnancies, things no one could prove. The absence of evidence became evidence of imagination. But Emily's family never believed she left willingly. Her mother kept the porch light on every night. Her father drove the roads long after dark, scanning ditches and tree lines. Her younger brother slept with his phone on, convinced that one night it would ring. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. And then, slowly, the searches stopped. The flyers faded. The news vans left. The case file was placed on a shelf, stamped with a word no family ever wants to hear. Cold. For the next decade, Emily Vance existed only in memory. Birthdays passed without candles. Holidays came and went with an empty chair. Her parents aged in a house that never stopped waiting. And somewhere in Elk Ridge, someone knew exactly what had happened, but they said nothing. In the late 1990s, the investigation was quietly downgraded. No new leads, no physical evidence, no suspects who could be held. Detectives changed. Files were reassigned. Eventually, the case became something new officers were warned about in hushed tones. Don't get stuck on it. There's nothing there. Until one man refused to accept that. Detective Samuel Harlan wasn't assigned Emily's case. In fact, when he first came across her file, it was by accident. A box pulled from storage during a routine audit. Inside were yellowed reports, faded photos, and a single missing person flyer folded so many times the paper had gone soft. 17 years old. Last seen walking home from work. Never found. Harlan couldn't shake it. Something about the simplicity of it bothered him. Crimes that left no mess often hid the darkest truths. And Elk Ridge was too quiet, too sealed, too practiced at forgetting. So Harlan started asking questions again. Off the books, after hours, without permission. He walked the route Emily had taken that night. He stood under the streetlights. He listened, and slowly, pieces that had once seemed meaningless began to shift. There had been a noise complaint near the railroad tracks that night. logged and dismissed. A rusted boxcar parked on a rarely used siding. Overlooked. A local man who had offered rides to teens in the area. Interviewed once. Cleared. And then there was the photograph. It came from an attic shoebox nearly 3 decades later. Emily's childhood friend had been cleaning out her parents' home when she found it. A Polaroid. Time-warped. Slightly blurred. It showed a teenage girl who looked unmistakably like Emily, sitting inside what appeared to be a boxcar. Her expression wasn't panicked, but it wasn't relaxed either. The photo had no date, no name, no explanation. When Harlan saw it, he felt something tighten in his chest. This wasn't nothing. This was the moment everything changed. The photo reopened doors that had been closed for years. Investigators returned to the railroad yard. Records were pulled. Old maintenance logs. Shipping manifests. Boxcar numbers that no one had bothered to track in 1995. One car stood out. It had been moved unexpectedly the morning after Emily disappeared. Cleaned shortly afterward. The cleaning had been chalked up to routine maintenance at the time. Now it felt deliberate. Forensic teams swabbed what little remained. Rushed. Dust. Shadows a touch. And in a world that had changed since 1995, that was enough. DNA technology had evolved. Where once there was nothing, now there was possibility. But progress came slowly. Years passed again. Funding stalled. The department hesitated. This was an old case. Resources were limited. Someone wanted to reopen old wounds. Harlan didn't care. He paid for testing himself when he had to. He pushed. He waited. He called labs weekly. He followed up on men who had never left Elk Ridge. Men who had aged quietly. Men who had blended in. And then, finally, a result came back. Partial. Incomplete. But real. Enough to begin building a genetic profile. Enough to start asking a different question. Not who disappeared Emily Vance, but who had been close enough to touch her world and never leave. The trail led to a man who had lived in Elk Ridge his entire life. A man who had worked near the railroad. A man who had once offered Emily a ride home. His name was not announced publicly at first. When detectives knocked on his door, he was in his late 50s. Gray-haired. Married. Known. Familiar. Someone people waved to at the gas station. He denied everything. He always had. But science doesn't forget the way people do. A discarded cup, a cigarette butt, a final comparison. The DNA matched. After nearly 30 years, the silence broke. The arrest shocked Elk Ridge to its core. Neighbors gathered in the street. Old rumors were resurrected. Faces people had trusted suddenly looked unfamiliar. Emily's family received the call they had waited half their lives for, and the one they had dreaded. Her mother cried. Her brother closed his eyes. Her father whispered her name. In court, the evidence spoke slowly but clearly. The photograph, the boxcar, the DNA, the truth that had waited patiently. When the verdict came, there was no cheering, no celebration, only a quiet acknowledgement that something long buried had finally been brought into the light. Justice had arrived. Late, imperfect, but real. Emily Vance never made it home that night in 1995, but her story did not vanish with her. It waited in memories and shadows, and the stubborn refusal of a detective who wouldn't let her be forgotten. Her case reminds us that time doesn't erase truth. It only hides it, and that sometimes justice doesn't come from urgency, but from persistence, love, obsession, and truth colliding at last. And the question that lingers now is not who did this. It's how many other names are still waiting. In attics, in boxes, in silence. If Emily's story stayed with you, take a moment to honor her by liking this video. It helps keep her name from fading again. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe every cold case can still be solved if someone refuses to let go? And if you want more real stories where time, truth, and science finally collide, consider subscribing, because somewhere, another name is waiting to be remembered.